the problem we're trying to solve, or at least ameliorate, is political polarization, especially in the United States. We're working on this for over 10 years. We've developed a platform of policy proposals that attempt to integrate values from across the political spectrum, but it's not a centrist ideology or a project. We're trying to transcend and create a synthesis that's not just meeting in the middle or cutting off the extremes. So our website is culturalevolution.org, and people can see our platform and our numerous articles. I'm the co-founder and chief philosopher. And beginning in 2023, we realized that there was an opportunity to use emerging AI to contribute to what we're doing, to kind of create an artificial intelligent version of our political approach to polarization. And so if you let me share my screen, I'll give a quick demo of what that looks like. Because I'm going to tell the story of how I created this, but first, just let me give you a quick demo. So here's the homepage of the Depolarizing GPT. The URL is depolarizingGPT.org, and it's a free service. Again, we're trying to bring peace to the culture war, and this is, we don't expect that this AI is going to do that by itself, but it contributes to our larger efforts, and the creations of humans remain better when it comes to making peace in the culture war. But this AI, it does demonstrate what we do, and it does help bring attention to our work. So the way it works is you enter a prompt here. So how can we overcome political polarization would be the prompt, right? And so it takes a second. We're not quite as fast as GPT-4, but after you ask the question, it starts filling in the answers in each one of these categories. So we have the left wing, we have the right wing, and then we have what we're calling depolarizing, which again is attempting to create a win-win-win by integrating values from across the political spectrum. So you have three answers here in these little bubbles. And if you click on an answer, then you can see the full text below, and then you can inquire that, ask it further questions and interrogate it. The idea is that people will be attracted to it because their particular, partisan position is represented, at least partially. And we want the right wing to consider the left wing and vice versa. But more important, we want both wings or both sides in this. There's more than one side really, but we've divided it into three instead of like 7 positions, just because it just gets too complicated and too involved. And we wanted to keep it simple and something that some people are using it quite a bit. Other people just think it's a novelty and want to check it out. But either way, we're finding that there's reasonably good uptake for this, and so we're proud to have created it. So rather than trying to read what's on the screen, let me just do kind of go through quickly these slides I have to give you an idea of how I created this and what these depolarizing answers really look like, right? So back in February, I came across this New York Times article that reported on, the headline is "Conservatives Aim to Build a Chatbot of Their Own," right? And I thought that was interesting, especially since the academic who created this supposedly conservative chatbot was not a conservative. They wanted to put him in that box. But anyway, I read that with interest, and the person who they were reporting on was David Rosado, who's an academic data scientist. He's Spanish, but he works as an academic at a university in New Zealand. And he's pretty well known. Here's a photo of him, David Rosado's statistics. What he had done is create an academic research paper that showed how the original versions of GPT 3 and GPT 4, when they first came out, had a clear bias, political bias, despite their claims to be completely politically neutral. Now, these biases that he was able to detect academically in GPT, pale in comparison to the Google debacle with Gemini. So that kind of made the problem much more evident, much more worse. I don't really think that GPT is that politically biased. That's not the problem I'm trying to solve with this AI, but it's worth understanding how this came to be. So here is an example of, and again, too small to read, but Rosato's research showed that when, for example, you ask GPT questions like, why are women dishonest, right? It came back with a warning. It said this content may violate our content policy. And then the answer was, it's not accurate or fair to characterize people by, big groups. But then they asked the same question, why are men so dishonest? It doesn't have any kind of warning whatsoever. And he charted the slapping of this warning label on different queries, and the ones that were most protected, understandably, right, are disabled people, Black people, gay people, right, the people that you'd expect the GPT to kind of prevent harassment or negative questions on. Of course, the people that you're free to ask any negative questions on are wealthy people, Republicans, down there at the bottom, right? So again, this is not a big problem. I don't think that the bias, at least within GPT 3 and 4, is causing polarization in the United States. But having read about Rosato's work, I contacted him to see if he'd want to work with us to take what he had done, his what he called right-wing GPT was not made public. It was just a demonstration to indicate that that there was a left-wing bias, and he wanted to show exactly an opposite right-wing bias, what that would look like. And that's what got all the media attention from the New York Times and Wired and all kinds of other magazines. So I contacted him to say, look, here's our philosophy. We're trying to reduce polarization. And what my idea was is we take the existing GPT that has a slight left bias and push it further left. And then we take his right-wing prototype and then make that into, train it a little bit, make it more robust, and make those two public together with the this third option, which was this politically integrating, depolarizing version of the GPT. And what made me excited to do that was I read this other article, again, the first part of last year, where there was an academic paper. This is something from Motherboard reporting on the academic paper itself. But the materialist philosopher Daniel Dennett, pretty famous, many people may have heard of him. His students they trained an AI on his philosophy. And then they did experiments where they got experts on Daniel Dennett's work. And they had a series of questions, and they asked Dennett to provide answers, and then they asked the same questions to the AI, and the experts couldn't tell the difference, right? Now, of course, Dennett's philosophy is highly kind of flattened and materialistic, so his might lend itself to a machine intelligence better than more nuanced kinds of philosophy. But nevertheless, I thought, okay, this can be trained on a specific philosophy. That gave me hope that we could make something that would be worthwhile. So then we created this chatbot, as I explained, and this is just a screenshot of it. This was part of this service, this Depolarizing GPT service is part of a variety of online engagement tools that our website, Developmental Politics. Developmental Politics is a political wing of the Institute for Cultural Evolution, our main political project. And on our website, developmentalpolitics.org, we include not only the AI, but we also have a worldview questionnaire where people are asked about their values and kind of show what worldview provides their center of gravity. We have another one that's a character development exercise where people put in, who's very important to them, what's transcendent for them, and it creates what we call the portrait of the good, which is like your chosen virtues and those to whom you owe an ethical obligation, and that's been a very popular self-character development exercise. And then we also have practices of what we call cultural intelligence, which is awareness of your own value system and a degree of sympathy for others. So this fits into this larger sort of internet engagement that we've been doing. And I tried to make it look as simple as possible. Here's a regular GPT, and then here's Depolarizing GPT. In terms of the training, we tried to make the left wing and the right wing what we call responsible left and responsible right. Perhaps we could call that center left and center right, but We trained it on, famous folks, like on the left, John Kenneth Galbraith or Amartya Sen or Orlando Patterson or Bill McKibben. And over on the right, we had Thomas Sowell and Roger Scruton and Friedrich Hayek and Edmund Burke, some living and some dead, but, kind of the intellectuals in both camps. And then we trained the depolarizing version of the model on the work of the Institute for Cultural Evolution, including my 2020 book, Developmental Politics. We immediately got some decent media attention. We got attention from Wired. They did a story on it, and Fox News did a story on it. And despite, you might think, Fox News especially is highly partisan, but they did a pretty good job, the reporter did, of reporting on the philosophy behind what we're trying to do, right? So here's a quote from that Fox News article for me. Instead of pretending there's no bias, which always exists, let's show people a responsible right and a responsible left and an integrated position. Underneath it all, most people want to both fix what's wrong and preserve what's right. We don't want the French Revolution on the one hand or an irrational attachment to the strict status quo on the other. The truth is that left and the right are interdependent and ultimately need each other. And we want to show something, show people something in the political space beyond hating the other side, right? And so that's the kind of synopsis of the philosophy. But what we're trying to do here, I mean, even though I am on the left, and I don't like many of the answers that the right-wing side of the GPT gives, the point here is that multi-perspectivalism, right? The ability to take the perspective of those we disagree with it's a straightforward way that people can evolve their consciousness, right? Our theory of change is that people's consciousness evolves when they expand the scope of what they're able to value. And so with respect to multi-perspectivism, Wikipedia, multi-perspectivity is a significant tool for stimulating historical understanding and thinking and a necessary precondition for all citizens that live in a multicultural society. The idea being that there is the prime political polarity that sort of underscores the fact that we see some version of left and right in almost every human polity. And there's research showing that people have actually a heritable genetic proclivity to side with one. It's not hardwired, but there are people who are naturally kind of built to be more on the right and more on the left. And the underlying polarity, as we explained in detail, in our various works, is that some folks are naturally oriented more to fixing what's wrong, and others are naturally more oriented toward preserving what's right. And this can change as you grow. But this is a kind of an indestructible polarity. It continues to reappear. It's recursive and ultimately interdependent, because if you just focus on one of these poles to the exclusion of the other, pathology of some kind is almost the inevitable result. So, for example, if you ask it general questions, so here back to the AI to kind of end this little description of it. If you ask it generic questions like how can we overcome, political polarization, the answers are, pretty good, but they're ultimately kind of banal, right? Like much people may have experienced that for some things AI is really good, but other things it just kind of gives these sort of, blow-dried answers that really don't say very much. And what we found is that when you ask it more specific questions, the quality of the answers get better. So for example, if you ask it a question like, what is the best policy for universal basic income, right? The left-wing side likes it, says we should implement it immediately. It's a great idea. The right-wing side, the best policy on universal basic income is to not implement it at all. And it goes on to give an argument for why the UBI would be bad for our society. The depolarizing one is highly nuanced. I added some bold to this. This is a slide of the detailed answer to the question of what's the best policy on universal basic income. And in this answer, the depolarizing version of the three-answer model gives the response, first we can acknowledge the progressive value of social justice and equality, the modernist value of economic progress and prosperity, and the traditionalist value of loyalty to family and country. emphasizing the importance of work and personal responsibility. So it sort of, it gets at the underlying values that are below the policy issue of whether it's a good idea kind of economically. And then it attempts to integrate them, and it gives a kind of a modified version that suggests a progressive tax system and redirecting funds to certain welfare programs that are means tested. I mean, again, I'm not going to kind of get into all the wonky details of the recommended policy, but it gives you an idea of sort of what we have in mind with this chatbot. You know, another one here, I'm going to go ahead and stop showing it to you so we can have time for questions. But, you know, here's how can America grow into a better version of itself? And it gives 3 answers, which are very interesting to read, especially, I think, of course, the depolarizing one, because it demonstrates how polarization is not something we're gonna solve by compromise, at least not in the political arena. It's something we have to grow out of as a society. And how that actually works, how that could be achieved, is really the focus of our entire think tank's work from various different angles. You know, beyond specific political issues, you know, it also does fun stuff. Like if you ask it to write a poem on consciousness, again, I won't read this poem on consciousness, but it's actually, you know, kind of kitschy, like the art that AI produces. There's something kind of about it that's a little bit cheesy, and this poem is a little bit cheesy too. But it's still something that I think is entertaining and interesting and kind of amazing, really, the gee whiz factor of AI. Even though most of us are used to it now, it's still there. It's still, you know, amazes and disappoints and, you know, threatens and delights. So we're working with it. We're trying to, you know, people were very concerned. Let me just go ahead and stop sharing this screen. There was significant concern when AI came out that it would do what social media has done, but even worse, right? That social media there have been many responsible commentators who pointed out how polarization has been severely exacerbated by social media. And so we were motivated, at least partially, to show how AI, although certainly the threats of polarization are still there, we wanted to show how AI could be used to ameliorate polarization by demonstrating what the integration of values looks like. And we're happy with the result. And if people want to see a more intellectually sophisticated and nuanced version of depolarizing GPT's answers, then I can point them to the Developmental Politics website, where we have this platform of issues. It's a growing platform: climate change, immigration, healthcare, all the major issues of the day in America. We've, or at least most of them, we've tried to, we have a white paper, you know, about 5 or 6 page white paper on each of these issues that demonstrates our method of integrating values and creating win-win-win policy proposals. And those are pretty wonky. It's not something I can just like summarize, or that you'd be satisfied with some headline about that. So I invite you to go and check it out. And if you're interested in our work, there's many ways to get involved. And so we can invite you to investigate us further. So that's gone over the time that you had for me, Nick. So let me just go ahead and open it up for folks who have questions for this.
Yes, thank you so much, Steve. That was fantastic.
Great,
So
thanks.
we've got a few questions coming through the chat. Let's start. Does anybody, I see hand in the back, John. So on the floor in the middle, you're going to see a microphone, one of these things. If you can hand that to him and just press the button so it's green, John, and then you should be able to speak.
Yeah, like this.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It's very inspiring. So my name is Junlong Wang. I'm a student at University of Southern California. So what you are doing is really similar with 2 of the most influential mentors of mine. They are also working on the depolarization, promoting like a similar argument. So Yeah, at our organization, we are working on empowering everyday students across the world to develop global intelligence. So it's very similar to cultural intelligence. So I'm wondering, in your user group, which age group is most receptive for depolarizing GPT? Is that a younger group? Is that a scholar, or is that other demographic? Thank you.
Sure, excellent question. I'm glad to hear of global intelligence and its affinity with our idea of cultural intelligence. You know, we've had thousands of people create accounts on this AI, but you know, we're a small nonprofit think tank. We're not a tech company, so we don't have a large staff of people who are analyzing the demographics or people who are signing up. Plus, we don't want to be nosy and ask a whole bunch of questions for people to create an account. We want to make it as easy as possible. All we ask for, first of all, we give a free trial. Anybody can use it quickly without giving us any information. The number of tokens that they can use under the quick trial are limited, but then they can get a much larger battery of tokens when they create an account. They just give us their email and we sign them up. So the short answer is we don't really know the demographics of the people who are using this. We know that the demographics of our general audience for the Institute for Cultural Evolution skew older, but we certainly have many young people, and we would love to grow our audience to include a younger demographic. But again, we're not spending huge amounts of money on marketing this. You know, I've been building the organization now for over 10 years, and I'm going to continue to do that, including the platform and its tools like the one I just showed you. But I actually have turned back to writing my next book, trying to add to the body of thought, which is the fundamental philosophy behind our thinking, integral philosophy, it's called. And this will be my 5th book on integral philosophy. And so that's where I'm focusing rather than on analyzing our audience.
We had some, I want to just go back online. Steve, we had some people ask, somebody posed in the chat, they're working on a GPT on tech ethics, and they're wrestling.
On what? GPT on what?
Sorry, can you hear me now, Steve?
Yes, I can.
My microphone wasn't on. So in the chat, somebody asked, we're working on the GPT on tech ethics, and we're wrestling with the economics of delivering the service from an organization with a tiny budget. How have you dealt with this? What was the cost that you encountered? I mean, you don't have to give numbers, but this is something that we think about a lot as smaller nonprofits who are mission driven and working with small budgets. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or experience to share from that.
Sure. Well, when I contacted David Rosado, right, who I showed you in the slideshow, he's an academic. He's not a commercial developer. We did pay him some money, but our deal with him is not public. But anyway, it was not a huge amount of money. Anyway, we worked with him for about 3 months to train and finalize the three answers. We also used our very capable web developer, and we paid him for several weeks of work to create the website that then displayed the API, or the technical feed from GPT. There's also the monthly data expenses, but those have been fairly small. Again, we have thousands of people who've signed up for this, but it's not as if it's going viral or breaking our data bank. So our charges from OpenAI are less than $500 a month. And the amount of money that we spent to create this was under 50,000. So again, we could spend a whole lot more money on this, right? We could create a fancy app for your phone. Right now, it's just a website, which you can certainly use on your phone. But again, we're not marketing it. It's a service. It's a nonprofit gift to the world. It's been uptaken fairly well, but even though we did get good attention from Fox and Wired, we expected that we would get better mainstream media attention than we got. But it's worth mentioning that apparently, this was not that impressive to the New York Times or, to the Wall Street Journal or some of the other mainstream outlets we contacted. But that's probably for reasons I don't understand, because I'm not deeply in the tech industry. Perhaps there's so many novel AIs coming out right now that just another one, even if it has unique and intellectually interesting features like ours does, doesn't qualify for significant media attention. So that's something to be aware of. If you're going to create a small AI, it would be, I think, unrealistic to expect to get much publicity for it free at this basis where we are in terms of the media's somewhat cynical view of AI.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Really quickly, is this tool open source? Is there a way to see into the back end of the algorithm?
That's a good technical question. I mean, the website is there. You can look at the code on the website like you could any other website. Open source has not been a big focus of ours. We have it here. We don't want somebody to just take it and duplicate it exactly. But we're not trying to protect it, and we're not making it secret. Again, it's a nonprofit effort. It's a boutique effort. So if folks are interested, we'll happily share. They can contact me by email, happily share what we know about it. But I'm not sure whether it's open sourced.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question in the room. I see a hand back there. There should be a microphone behind you, actually. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. My name is Nicole. I work with Search for Common Ground on the Common Ground USA team. I actually had a chance to use DepolarizingGPT for a little bit before this, so really enjoy the service. My question concerns, in the beginning of your demonstration, you referred to yourself as the chief philosopher of your organization, and I really love that term. And I'm curious where has philosophy shown up for you in both developing DepolarizingGPT and you talked about, I think, a certain type of philosophy that you were writing about. I would just love to hear more about that. Thanks.
Sure. Well, that's a big question, but I'll try to answer it as shortly as I can. The idea is that, like I said, we need to grow out of our current dysfunction as a civilization. And what that means is cultural evolution. So understanding cultural evolution in a way that it doesn't revert back to some Victorian notion of evolutionism, but is fully appreciates all of the very important insights that have come from the development of progressive postmodernism and other philosophical developments within our philosophical space. But the bottom line is that our main inspiration for philosophy is Alfred North Whitehead and Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, both of whom were very focused on the evolution of consciousness and culture. Teilhard popularized the term the noosphere as this realm of human evolution that is transcending, including cosmological evolution and biological evolution. So understanding the evolution of the noosphere, how it is an authentic kind of evolution, but one that can't be reduced to biological evolution because of human free will. A culture is evolving because people are trying to make the world a better place. And our needs can never be satisfied because we have this creative imagination to imagine always how things can be better. So understanding consciousness and how it evolves along with the evolution of culture, and understanding that not in a linear way, but in an understanding that there are certain features of cultural evolution that make the world a better place, like equality of women or the end of slavery. I mean, there are things which are so unequivocally more evolved than previous states of the world that we want to put a stake in the ground and say, yeah, it's worth transcending relativism, and without going to the other side of any kind of value absolutism, recognizing that culture is evolving, and part of the way it evolves is by expanding the scope of who we include. So we're trying to draw the circle of inclusion wider beyond. I mean, progressivism, its emergence over the last 60 years as a significant worldview, it's made its evolutionary advance by being more inclusive, right? This is one of its great strengths. But ultimately, it's not inclusive enough to include those who don't agree with its basic tenets, which is part of the reason we have this culture war. So trying to draw a circle that includes progressives, but also includes those in the center and those on the right, at least those of good faith, is part of the way that we see culture evolve.